Okay, I think we could start. So welcome everybody to our today's webinar, AI-driven root cause analysis, the future of audit investigations. My name is Johannes Schwele. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of DAB Datenanalyse und Beratungs GmbH. Please let me just go over the housekeeping rules for today. The webinar will last about 45 minutes. In the end, we will have 50 minutes for your questions. Please send over the questions in the Q&A section on the top bar left of the apps button. The webinar of today will be recorded, and the recording and the slides will be shared afterwards with you. If we should not be able to answer all the questions in the end, we will reach out and catch up with you individually. So that's the housekeeping rules. Let's take a look at today's agenda. We will give you a short introduction in our company. Then we will take a look at data analytics and the question if it makes audit more efficient and how and when. And then we take a look at AI-driven root cause analysis and the explanation and how it can support your analytic process. Then we will give a summary, and then we will have the time to answer questions. So let me give a short introduction into our company. We are DAB Datenanalyse und Beratungs GmbH, and since 2004 we are located in Deggendorf, the Bavarian Forest, and we are developing innovative software for the extraction and analysis of data, especially in the field of SAP data. That is some of our customers that we serve with our software and services. And now let me introduce our speakers of today. So first of all, we will have Moritz Lang with sound mathematical background. He's our data scientist and responsible for all the AI parts in our software. As a second speaker, we have Philip Kienke, one of our consultants, a long-time consultants of data-driven GSE projects, so somebody who knows firsthand, the business challenges of making data analysis effective for your audit work. And said that, I want to give over to you, Philip, because that will be your first topic. Thanks.
Correct. Thanks for the nice introduction, Johannes. Indeed, a long-time consultant. So 6 years, I've been working with audit departments to make their audit process much more efficient. And one of the big parts I'm dealing with analytics in audit departments. And maybe when we have a look on how data analytics look like for audit departments, we can say it makes audit more efficient in a way that you don't have to go into single documents, as we can see on the right side. Here we have an SAP document, an invoice. This is an invoice without a purchase order, but on this view, you do not see that a purchase order might be missing to that invoice. So where data analytics can help you is that it finds rule breaches very easily, and it can overlook millions and millions of records of line items instead of just going like on a case-to-case, document-by-document view. Also, it can provide overviews very easily. So before an audit, and this is what all the audit departments I know are doing, before you go into a company, into an area, department, and audit, you want to have an overview. How many sales in how many countries? How many customers? How many vendors do you have? And this is possible easily by data analytics, as it can run in the background, and you don't have to do it manually. So whilst on the flight, maybe to the Americas or to Europe, depending on where you are, the data analytics can already do the work for you, and you don't have to sit beside it and need to watch out. So data analytics can make it much more efficient. But when you have results, as we can see here on the screen, you get mostly a long list. So here we also have a test which shows all invoices which do not have a purchase order. And as we can see, we have some services which were purchased or some repairing stuff and some amounts. And if we are now trying to interpret this result, we need to go through it. So we are going through a list line by line, looking in different columns, going through it, maybe making some graphs, as we can see in the tab bar over the table. So we are trying to get also the reasons behind. But what we are actually doing, we are grabbing in single line items to find a major finding or to find a major deviation or whatever. So what we are actually doing is we are focusing on individual line items. And this leads to a few questions also. So what, as internal audit, are we doing with all these analytic results? So can we go line by line through all the results? And if we have on the right side, we see we have some accounts payable analytics which ran. We have some with 41,000 analytic results, some only with a few hundred, but already a few hundred are quite a lot. So how do we connect these results to each other? And how do we go on with this? And if we can have a look, yeah, data analytics can make an audit much more efficient. As no sampling is needed, we don't have that much manual effort, yeah? Especially when we have rule-based stuff. So there is, for example, one-time accounts are not allowed in our organization. You can easily find out whether this is a one-time account, a one-time vendor, or whatsoever. So a lot of things can be detected easily, especially process weaknesses, rule-based deviations, etc., on your or with the help of standard data analytics. But you get many different results which are not easy to interconnect. What do you do with the follow-up? And the big thing is also, what is a finding? So when do you say I have a finding in front of you? Because is a line item a finding? No. So what is the threshold that you say my data analytics result will also lead into a finding, a major, minor, A+, however you categorize it? And if we look at this next slide, then we see that the question of data analytics making audit more efficient is a yes, but with a big but. Because how do we find the reason behind by just looking at data analytics line by line by line? I already asked, when is a result a finding? So if we have 1,000 line items, is it a finding or not? Is it a finding with 1,001 findings? And as internal audits, we need to separate between internal controls. How do we stop, or how can we consult on this point the deviation from happening? And when we look at the IIA slide, this 3 lines of defense model, then I need to say internal audit is the department which takes the first 2 lines and overlooks the results, or should overlook what they are doing. So internal audit is not the department which should go through line items and look whether this line item was a mistake or not. Internal audit does testing, but also tries to figure out how we can improve the processes, how we can have like an assurance function, or internal audit has the assurance function. How can we assure that in the future, we do not have these deviations again, that we cannot outline processes? And this is a very important thing. So internal audit is much, much more than just control testing. Internal audit must take the data and lead it to some doings, some consulting on how we can get better, how we can have less risks, and how we can avoid some risks. And that wider approach is not so easy to tackle with a traditional data analytics. On some parts, yes, it can give you like an overview, and you can say, okay, something is wrong in here, but to find the reason behind, therefore we were thinking, how can we tackle this? And therefore I have my colleague Moritz with me. He's sitting directly in front of me, and we are talking quite a lot in the office about the everyday challenges of internal audit teams. And Moritz is more the brain from the both of us, and he found like some kind of solution for it. Go on, Moritz.
Yes, so Philip talked about some problems and challenges during an audit, and to simplify the work, we have created an AI-driven root cause analysis. And to fully understand the challenge, let's look at the problem statement first, to summarize the whole idea and the problem. So let's assume we, DAB, we have a new customer. And for today's webinar and for simplicity, let's call that customer the fashion company. And as a first step, our software always extracts SAP data, or at least some SAP data. And afterwards, as a second step, the fashion company runs 30 analytic steps against that data with our software. One example of an analytic step is the one that filters out, like Philip said, all the invoices without a purchase order upfront. And now the fashion company selected 30 analytic steps from our portfolio. And so therefore, 30 analytic steps refer to 30 results tables. As I said, with the example, our check for invoices without a purchase order. So that analytic step would produce a single results table. And in that table, line by line, there will be all the invoices without a purchase order upfront. And now the problem starts, because now someone from the fashion company has to look through those 30 results tables and has to identify patterns and relationships. And as you can see, that is a quite challenging work and highly repetitive. And therefore, we implemented an AI that fully takes over that work. So we have an AI that identifies patterns and relationships in those 30 results tables. And afterwards, maybe an auditor or someone else from the fashion company can fully focus on interpreting the already prepared results then. During that time we implemented that AI, of course, we wanted 3 very important features regarding to that AI. First, we wanted that AI to be unsupervised, because we do not have any patterns or structures from the fashion company where the AI could learn from. Second, we wanted that AI to be generic. That means we want a single AI that works on all those 30 results tables. We do not want an AI for each results table, so one for all. And last, and the most important feature, we wanted an interpretable AI. So we want that AI to produce results, to show patterns that are fully interpretable for the user, maybe for the auditor or someone else at the fashion company. And we will see in a couple of slides that indeed the work of the AI is fully interpretable. But before we look at 2 examples, Philip will give a quick overview of what the AI-supported audit process looks like.
Correct. So that sounds like pretty complicated process what Moritz just described, and I just want to show you like it's almost the same process as if you would run your analytics without any AI support. So if we look at the process, then we can see that it's pretty straightforward. So we start in our SAP system and then do a data extraction. For example, with DAP Nexus, with the ACL connector for sub, or whatever technique we're using. After the data load, the data extraction, we run our typical standard analytics steps, so the DAB analytics suite. And then the AI algorithms get on top of our data analytics. So what we do is we're always using our standards and then on top using AI algorithms. This is also fully in the automated process, so you don't have to take care of it. It will run the same way as your data analytics, your data extraction, or anything else runs. Then the next step is the distribution of the results. So wherever you are looking onto your results, may it be a Power BI, may it be a Tableau or some other dashboards, we can display not just the line items as we just saw in my slides before, but also now the patterns the AI found out. And with this, we start our follow-up process and can jump back also into our SAP system to find out what is actually happening in there, if we have the patterns to look for. But what we are, or what we want to show you is, it's a straight process. You don't have to start like 10 different things. No, it's a streamlined process, all with one or a few clicks if you have your parameterization. The distribution of the results is also the next topic what we want to show you. So we have now done the first 4 boxes. They have run overnight or over the last days. And now we get our results distributed in a Power BI dashboards where Moritz will guide us through.
So let's have a look at the first example today. And please keep in mind, we are looking at the fictitious company name, the fashion company. But both examples today are based on real data. So nothing is faked here. So either the patterns or the structures. So everything is real, nothing is faked. And both examples today are shown in Power BI, but the implementation is possible with any other framework like Tableau or even Highbond. Okay, the fashion company used our software to extract data and to run 30 analytic steps against their data. And one out of those 30 analytic steps was our check for filtering out all the invoices without a purchase order upfront. And now at the bottom of that Power BI dashboard, you can see a table, and that table contains exactly those invoices without a purchase order, line by line. So each line is an invoice without a purchase order. Let's have a look at the columns. I will start with the second column, and I will talk about the first column in a minute. So column 2, document number, then we have the line item number, we have the item text, the document creator, the vendor name, the vendor country, document date, and the amount in euro. And now, if we look at the top right, you can see a bar chart. And the x-axis of that bar chart shows the time span. So beginning with January 2019 up to December 2021. And now the height of the bars is simply the number of findings, so the number of invoices without a purchase order per month. So in January 2019, the fashion company had slightly above 100 invoices without a purchase order. In the next month, February 2019, there were slightly under 100 findings. And so here you can see the time span and the time series. So all those bars, the number of findings. Let's first have a look at the trend line here. You can see the trend is decreasing, and that's a very good sign for the fashion company, because this tells us that as time goes by, the number of findings is decreasing. And that is a very good indicator for the fashion company. Next, let's have a look at the benchmark. And the benchmark here is represented by the dotted line. And that dotted line, we know from experience what to expect. So by averaging the number of findings per month over a couple of other customers of DAB, we know that on average, our customers have roughly 120 invoices without a purchase order per month. And again, it looks good for the fashion company because all the bars are under average. Let's have a look at the overview table now, and we can see the root causes in there. And let me quickly click on the first root cause. And now you can see in the bar chart, all the colors fade except the yellow one. And that pattern, that root cause, is explained by the AI by using vendor name is Bell Limited. So all those, let's call it yellow invoices without a purchase order, are produced by the vendor name Bell Limited. And now in the results table at the bottom, we have the drill down function. And now you can see all those 1,241 invoices without a PO up front in that table. And as I scroll down, of course, now the vendor name stays the same. It's always Bell Limited. So the first pattern the AI recognized here is that vendor name Bell produces 1,241 findings. And we have a total amount of nearly 9 million euros. Let's have a look at the second root cause. Again, I click on vendor country is Egypt, so EG here for Egypt. And again, we can see the light blue now is highlighted, all the other colors fade. And again, we have to drill down at the bottom, and we can see all those 145 findings. And we can see that the vendor country stays the same. It's always Egypt as I scroll down. And it's very interesting now that if we have a look at the vendor name, there is either WBBC Egypt or just WBBC in the vendor name. And please keep in mind, we are looking at real data today, so nothing is faked here. And I think there is a vendor duplicate in here. And so therefore, the AI uses the vendor country to explain that pattern and not the vendor name, because with the help of the vendor country Egypt, it is much easier to explain that pattern. Let's jump to the third root cause. And the first and the second root cause, you have seen that the explanation is done by using a single column. Now you can see that the AI is able to use multiple columns to explain a pattern. Now, the third pattern, the red one, is highlighted, and it is explained by document creator is West, and the item text contains both words, conquer and cache. We have a total of 235 findings, and let's look at the results table at the bottom. So let's have a look at those 235 invoices without a purchase order up front. And of course, as I scroll down, the document creator is always West because the root cause tells us. And now it's interesting if you have a look at the item text as I scroll down, there it always says conquer cache at least, and sometimes there is even the surname appended, so the surname of the vendor name. I will scroll down a little bit further, and you can see that pattern over and over again. Here we have conquer cache Andrew, and Andrew is the surname of the vendor, Tommy Andrew. And the AI fully captures this pattern in the item text. And here conquer cache come from traveling expenses, and the vendors here are employees of the fashion company. And as you can see, the AI is able to use multiple columns to find patterns, and the AI even has a built-in model for natural language processing to understand such item texts. Okay, let's go to the next pattern. Again, we can see one color is highlighted now, all the others fade, and the explanation for that pattern is document creator is Miller, and the clearing document creator is Miller too. The next patterns, the next three patterns are very interesting, and please keep in mind we are looking at real data. So starting with Franklin here in orange in 2019, I think there was a change in work responsibilities because After Franklin in orange, Bennett in blue maybe took over some work of Franklin, and afterwards, Garcia took over. So this is a very interesting pattern based on three root causes. Now we have to talk about the last class. Oh, sorry. Let me quickly jump back now. Now we have to talk about the last class, the all other group. So that cluster contains 361 invoices without a PO upfront, where the AI detects no pattern or no structure. So we have a total of 361 findings that has no structure or pattern in it. And we can see by looking at the number 361 and the total number of findings. So all other contains roughly 10% of the findings, and the remaining 90% of the findings, the AI explained by only using 7 colors, so 7 patterns. And now the auditor from the fashion company or someone else has to further investigate the patterns and, of course, that cluster all other, because that cluster has no structure. Okay, that's it for the first example. Let's have a look at another one. So please keep in mind, we have a look today at the fashion company. Here, the name is fictitious, but the data is real data. And the fashion company uses our software to extract some SAP data and to run 30 analytic steps against that data. And the first step, the first analytic step was that one for invoices without a purchase order. And now the second step is we have a look at all those invoices that have not been paid by the automatic payment run. And all those invoices are again shown at the bottom in the results table. And you can see at the bottom, line by line, we have all those invoices that have been paid manually. Let's have again a look at the bar chart. The time span is the same from January 2019 up to December 2021. And now there is a slight difference because now the height of the bars shows the total amount of those invoices that have been paid manually in the given month. So, for example, in January 2019, there was a total of 250,000 of manually paid invoices. And now you can see the bar chart looks completely different as in the example above, and we have 2 extreme outliers in the data. If you look at August 2019 and at August 2020, we can see we have 2 extremely high bars. And we will see in a minute that the AI fully captures the pattern of those 2 outliers. But first, let's look again at the trend. And we can see again, the trend is decreasing. So month by month, the bars on average get smaller. That's again a very good indicator for the fashion company. And the benchmark again, we know from DAB, we know from experience from other customers that on average we expect 1.7 million, a volume of 1.7 million per month of manually paid invoices. And so again, it looks good for the fashion company because all the bars, even the outliers, are under that benchmark. So let's have a look at the overview table at the top left and the root causes. First, I click on vendor name is US Border Protection and document creator is Weaver. And you can see again, the light blue here is highlighted. It's pretty interesting that only in the second half we have that light blue color. And again, we have to drill down at the bottom and you can see as I scroll down in the results table, of course, now the vendor name is always US Border Protection and the document creator is Weaver. And it's interesting if we have a look at the item text here, these contain custom duties that are charged, for example, for importing goods. Let's jump to the second root cause here, the second pattern highlighted in red. We have a total of 35 manually paid invoices where the vendor name is American Express Travel. Next, let's talk about those 2 interesting, Next, let's talk about those 2 outliers, and you can see the AI fully captures those 2 outliers by explaining them with the vendor name is ABC Tech, and the item text contains both words, annual and costs. And we can see those manually paid invoices are only 6, and they have a total volume of around about 2.3 million euros. And exactly those 6 manually paid invoices we can see now at the bottom, because we have that drill down on that results table. And as I scroll down a bit, you can see the vendor name is ABC Tech, of course. And the item text either contains annual costs for 2019 or for 2020. The next root cause, so the next pattern in the results table for that analytics step, highlighted in green, is explained by the AI by using vendor country, and here the vendor country is Australia. Next, we have here in orange, the document creator is Weaver, and the item text contains UPS and freight. If we quickly look again at the results table, of course, the document creator is Weaver, and the item text always contains at least UPS and freight, and there are some purchase orders on top. Last, we have the document creator James. Here, the pattern is highlighted in blue. And again, we have that cluster all other, and all other again contains all those manually paid invoices that have no structure in them. And if we compare those 592 manually paid invoices that have no structure with the total number of findings, 3,879, we can see that again, the AI is able to explain 85% of the findings by only using 6 colors. And now the auditor or someone else from the fashion company can further investigate from here. And now Philip will explain how he would further proceed from here.
Correct. So what we've now seen is that you get a dashboard, and now we just need to focus more or less on the overview itself. So of course, we can also jump, and we just keep in mind the lower table in the Power BI dashboard where we had the single line items. This we can always take for further investigating or for having a look, for explaining the root cause. But in general, what we just need to do is have a look at our overviews where the root causes are listed. So the first question could be, who is the company Bell Limited? What are they doing? So is there a reason why Bell Limited is not or does not require a purchase order? So this overview on the right side is now from the first example, invoices without purchase order. We all know that some things we do not have a purchase order for. So for example, a lot of electricity stuff, electricity supply, water supply, etc. There you cannot have like a purchase order for a certain amount, as you never know if it's a little bit darker, you might need more light, etc., etc. But if Bell Limited is just sending over goods, which you could order also up front, so you could further investigate, why are we not doing this for Bell Limited? Also, what we saw is that we can find patterns. We can easily say, okay, that's totally fine. Because when we look at the results document creator West, and item text contains Concur and Cash, we all know, yeah, this should be travel costs. So they use SAP Concur. It was all through this system. So also for traveling costs, you usually do not have a purchase order. You have like a travel permission, then you book your flights, book your train, book your whatsoever hotel. And then with Concur, in the end, you are putting in all your details, your travel details, and then the employee gets the money back because he paid for it. So we can say this pattern is fully okay. We don't have to investigate anymore. And here we only have to exclude one pattern and not 235 line items manually. Then we saw, like Moritz explained, that Garcia, Franklin, and Bennett, they were one pattern, just simply behind each other. So can it be that the first person was working for the company and maybe not knowing that a purchase order should be required and ask in the purchasing department, okay, we need a purchase order until we can pay. And then that first person quit, did not tell the person who then took over the job. That person quit again and did not tell the person who took over the job. And so we see that maybe the misinformation that you require a purchase order was given from one person to the other, so no one knows. So might it be a reason that we need some additional trainings? Do we need to better tell our guidelines on how it should be handled with invoices and purchase orders? So you can see working with the results is now much more handy than before, as you do not have to go into the line items. So we will follow up on the reasons. We're talking not line by line with the departments, with the corresponding departments. We're talking about the reasons on our overview list. It helps us to find patterns. We already get like more or less a list with patterns. I mean, we can always go on further and investigate further on some stuff, but at least we have more or less a few things we can go on from. And with that, we can help stopping the deviations from happening. So if we know that some employees were lacking of training, or Bell Limited should not be used anymore or whatsoever, we can consult and say, here you have to do this, here you have to do that. And with these, we can go on without these deviations to happen. Yeah, that brings us more or less already to the end of today's webinar with a short summary of what we have heard. So data analytics are a very important part of auditors' work today, as traditional data analytics gives you a good starting point for your audit. It delivers an overview. You can have lots of overview tables. Which are my vendors? Which are my customers? To which countries do I export, etc., etc., etc. There you don't really need patterns. It just shows you what is. And this is also important if you go into a company for auditing. It shows you where internal controls might fail. So if you say no, and I take the example again, no one-time accounts, no CPD transactions, and you see that you have a lot of CPD or one-time vendors, then it shows you where your internal controls failed. So also this is very easily possible, and it shows you rule breaches. So everything you can explain with a simple rule, this must not be this, if this is that, then you can find out very easily by traditional data analytics. But we were always lacking to find some patterns, some reasons behind. And there we get the AI support in our data analytics. And this can help us on top of our traditional data analytics to find some patterns behind the traditional data analytic findings. So what we are doing is we are not replacing the auditor. No, it actually supports the auditor in his actual work. So what we deliver is a tool which supports the auditor in his audit work. This is a starting point from where he then can or she can go on and further investigate on certain patterns, on reasons which were given, and trying to find process weaknesses, etc. So this is what we do, and I think it's a very interesting new tool which Moritz invented, and now I'm keen to hear a lot of questions from your side. And if you have not yet put your question in, feel free. On the upper corner, there's the F&A or Q&A box where you can type in your questions. And I think, Johannes, you have already have a look on the questions and are ready to ask us some of them. Are you still muted?
Yes, now I'm unmuted. So that's the first question that I think I can answer. So is which systems do you need to implement data analytics? Is this also possible for non-SAP systems? Yes, absolutely. Data analytics are also for non-SAP systems. When you apply the right technology here, the differentiator is that our standard analytics are really only for SAP, as SAP is a highly structured data system model, let's say it like this, whereas for other systems we find huge array of different structures. Nonetheless, if the analytics then meet certain criteria, it is definitely possible to think about if our AI upgrades also can apply to these analytics. Yes, so it's possible. Sometimes you have to put a closer look at it. I also have a very interesting question here. How does the AI decide to which pattern a finding is assigned, or the other way around? Is it possible that a finding will be assigned to two different patterns? Moritz, I think that is something that you would like to tackle here.
So great question. So yes, every finding has either a single unique root cause, or it is contained in that cluster all other, where all those findings are stored that have no pattern. And the first question of the whole question was how the AI is doing its work. And that's a very traditional problem, how to find those patterns. And therefore, exactly we wanted an AI, because the AI checks thousands and millions of patterns and then takes the best ones. So hopefully this answers the question.
Thank you. Philip, I think that should go more to you. Question is, can you explain a little bit the new added value of the AI piece compared to normal analytics? So what is the differentiator here, or what is the new part in all of that?
Yeah, I can do. So why do we need AI? And I think in his last words of the previous question, Moritz already answered a little bit of this. So what the AI does is, with more or less a statistical approach, looks which models can explain the result table we have the best. This cannot be easily done, or cannot be done at all sometimes with traditional data analytics, as the standard data analytic is always rule-based. So doesn't matter which data analytic language you take. So for example, if you have a rule-based SQL, then you have to always filter, give conditions, etc., etc. And the AI doesn't need this. It tries to explain itself what is the best explanation by trying out a lot of different patterns, and in the end, giving a reason to this. And this is, math, statistics, and which helps us to get a better understanding of our results in the end.
Thank you. Let's do it in turn. So the next one is a bit more techy. So for Moritz, which clustering algorithm is used to train the AI, and have we tried various ones? Oh, you're muted, Moritz.
Sorry. So during that phase we implemented the AI, of course, we tried various methods and clustering algorithms, but then we found out that our problem is very specific because we want to find patterns and structures in the results table. And therefore, there is not a single AI or method out there we could use. So therefore, we designed our own AI. So the method or the algorithm is not public. It's our own.
Okay, thank you. And then one more for Philip. It is more from a user perspective. So what does it take in terms of effort for an auditor to become familiar with the tool?
I would say not much. We always, when we are designing software, we always try to make it as easy to use as possible. So you should not think about how to use it. We are trying to give you a standard. So a few clicks, a few things you have to do, then the analytics do the extraction, then the analytics run, and also the AI on top, etc., etc. So the tool itself, I would say, to getting familiar with it, less than a day. So a few hours, then you know where to click. What we always recommend is, because if you didn't use structured data analytics before, the effort is more in the results. So understanding what the data analytics deliver. And there it depends a little bit on how many data analytics you want to implement, but usually most of our customers do 15 to 20 data analytics as a package for their audit work. And there I would say a 2-day workshop would totally be sufficient, and then training on the job. So going on an audit, having a look at this. So yeah, I don't see a lot of effort if you think of the added value which you can get out of it.
So to put it in other terms, it's not so much a technical challenge. It's more how to get used to the new views on the data and the data results. Correct, Flip?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the interpretation, and I mean, at least the AI supports already with this by giving some patterns to explain this.
So any other questions?
And if not, you can maybe show the next slides, because there we have also an email address. If you have any more additional questions, you can.
There's one more. I think that goes to Moritz. How reliable is the analysis of the AI? Is there also a significant error rate? So.
Great question. So, as I said a couple of slides before, one feature of that AI is that it needs to be unsupervised, because we do not have any patterns or structures from the past. And so therefore, we don't have the problem of error rates, because if the AI shows you a pattern, so a pattern was colored in that bar chart, you can see all those, in the example, invoices without a purchase order or manually paid invoices, then in the results table. So if there is a pattern, that pattern will always be true, because this pattern is in the data. So we don't have the problem of error rates here, because we are unsupervised.
So that also means you have to differentiate between the data the results that comes from the rule-based analytics and the add-on of the AI that gives you the interpretation. Yeah, another one. For how many controls or analytics is the AI solution available? So I know we've got roughly around more than 275 analytics available. For how many is the AI add-on available and sensible? I think, Philip, you might know about that.
Yeah, Moritz already told us a little bit about this. So what we wanted to have is a generic approach. So no matter which table we give to the AI, it will try to find a pattern. Always, like, you can have more columns or less columns or whatsoever, but it tries to find a pattern in what you give it. So for all our standard analytics, it is possible to find like a pattern. The limitation, I would say, is just in the data analytic itself. So where does it make sense to find a pattern? If you have overview tables, etc., I don't see it. But in the rule-based ones, there I can say we can have it for all our standard analytics. Or as Johannes in the beginning already said, if you have another system where you have your standard analytics, we could also feed our AI with your analytic results, and it finds a pattern in this.
So as long as the analytics step will produce a results table, and in that results table, you have the findings line by line, so then that AI can be used to detect patterns.
Okay. Yeah, I see we came a little bit to the end now. I think 55 minutes are also okay. So I would like to thank everybody for attending our webinar. Glad that you made it on time. Oh, I have just one. How do you leverage from patterns from an audit to another? That's an interesting one. Philip, let's take that as the last one.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So when you go on an audit, the AI will give you a pattern. This you can have a look for. Hopefully, departments, etc., learn something from this. And when you run it then for another organization, another department, maybe you don't have the issue. What we see is that also some patterns are highly dependent on the region we are or on the companies we are in. That's why we start from scratch every time we run this. What would make sense is maybe for you as an internal auditor, you also need some work to do, that you maybe have inside your reports in the end, or somewhere in your software, some patterns which you see very often. This you can maybe roll out to the whole company. But I would say let the analytic run for every audit you go and look for the patterns, because this is what the AI does. If you don't find, for example, that these three people we had who booked all the invoices without purchase order in another company, it can be that they are not responsible for this area. So the patterns, I would say, are not easily comparable. And what we could do is either run it separate for two company codes, or maybe also run for the whole company and see if we can find patterns which are a little bit more overall.
Thank you, Philip. Okay, with that, we close now and give you back like 4 minutes towards your next meeting. I guess we all face these back-to-back meetings, so thank you again for your attention. You can see our contacts here at the bottom, but as said, you will get the recording and the slides afterwards. Thank you again all for your time and your interest. Have a good day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.